Well, welcome to my first ever YouTube video. If you're watching this, you might be one of the very first. But what you heard just there was the glorious, amazing, rich, complex sound of pure analog mono synth doing progressive house plucking, produced by either the Behringer Model D or the Behringer Pro-1. What we're going to do is we're going to try and create that pluck sound on both of these synths one by one, and then you'll see what they can do. Can they pluck at all? And we're going to put them through their paces and see if we get a winner. And spoiler alert, we do get a winner. But let's do it. So the way you make the deadmau5 pluck sound is fairly simple. Use one oscillator, not two. Sawtooth, not square wave or pulse. Going to turn up that oscillator there. Open up the VCA using the sustain. We're not actually using the VCA to control the envelope, we're using the filter to control the envelope. So you give it a little bit of decay, which is what actually is going to be the pluck. And then as we dial in the envelope amount, it will start to apply this filter envelope more and more and more. There's no resonance. The keyboard amount he didn't use. I mean, he did this on Serum, but he didn't use, and it was all default settings. And I'll just show you what it sounds like. So I've got a classic pluck arpeggiating sequence, and the way you make those is you have something like a 6-note sequence that just repeats round and round and round. So I'll just play that like this. You can probably hear it in the background because even with everything closed, you're still getting something. So I'm now just going to open up the filter slowly. Right. It's not plucking yet, but it's sounding pretty good. Now I'm just going to apply the filter envelope. That is basically the pluck sound. But you tune these in using your hands. The point about keyboard is it will change the filter. It'll open the filter up more or less depending on where the note is on the keyboard. So sometimes you'd use this if it's too dark or too bright. Maybe about there. And then the kind of way in which you get the builds would be like this. So you take the envelope down. So now it's just going through the VCA with no plucking. Start down there. This of course is a sound that every EDM or progressive house producer is very familiar with. Both hands. Now I'm going to open up the envelope, the filter envelope, which won't really do anything because the cutoff frequency is so high. So it's only sort of plucking in this range. And now when that's about there, then there you go. And that of course is where the drums would come in. So let's just try it with the drums. I've got a drum beat here. In fact, not only have I got a drum beat, but I've actually got this synth routing through one of my analog gates set to duck and triggering off the bass drum. So I'll do it without any of the ducking, and I'll just show you. I'll put the ducking on. Of course, you get an overall drop in level. I'll just do the build again. Seven, that's basically how you do it. From that kind of quite sort of basic idea, let's just see what else we can do. So of course we can play around with opening up the decay a bit, which sounds a bit like that, but it is different. The other thing we could do is, instead of having this sustain, we could also kind of superimpose the decay on the VCA. So, I mean, I know exactly how deadmau5 made the sound in Serum. He didn't do this, but it's fine. His was like 3 clicks away from the default preset. But this sounds pretty good. Maybe a bit more snappy. The main thing though is that as you get this build, you want it just to take over. And I'm just going to show you what's happening with this build. So what's happening is that the waveform is just kind of being torn apart. And because it's being torn apart, you're getting quite literally a very pure form of distortion, and that's producing harmonics. In my view, it sounds like this that you just kind of can't get something. So in fact, even though deadmau5 used Serum for his plucks, he actually always, as far as I'm aware, doubled them with his analog synths. But the idea to just like throw these around is great. Now you can also make this kind of sound a little bit like acid. Now if you want to make this sound like acid, obviously you're going to need the resonance, which is going to give you a drop in level. So you ride, that's how you compensate. But you're also going to want a square wave rather than a saw. Such a classic square wave. You can kind of hear it sound sort of, I mean, that's like a game of Space Invaders. And this is kind of out of control stuff that you just can't get it through plugins. I do not care what people say. I have the plugins. I have the Arturia V collection. I've got so many soft synths, and they can't do this as purely. It all falls apart in the top end. Plus, even if you could get the sounds which you can't, there's nothing like being able to do that. I mean, it's like changing pickup, isn't it, on a guitar? You know, you see a lot of guitarists where sort of halfway through a riff or a solo, they'll switch from the bridge to the neck. You know, just being able to do that. It's just, oh, of course you can put them both on. It's actually not a sound I particularly use on this synth. That's very nice. You kind of get more apparent low end from square waves for various reasons. See, there's not quite, it doesn't sound as weighty, but that's okay. It's not all about the weight all the time. See, now we've opened it to do this, compare it to this. Kind of cleans up a bit. Cleans up a lot. So that's great, sounds really good. Now let's see what it sounds like on the Model D. Okay, so right at the top of this video, I said this was my first ever YouTube video. Not quite. I've made a few videos before that are unlisted for sort of private people, but this is the first video I'm making for a new channel all about this kind of thing and OG production techniques and how you can use them in the age of digital audio workstations. If you like this video, and I really hope you do, please like it, please subscribe. You're going to be one of the very, very, very first, and I'll be making lots more of these. Okay, back to the demo. So now we're here. Same deal, more or less. Single oscillator, sawtooth, not square. We're just using the filter envelope on this just because the envelopes behave differently. You do it with decay rather than sustain. I'll show you what sustain sounds like in a minute. So it's very weighty. Very weighty indeed. In some ways more weighty than the Pro-1, but it doesn't have the snap. Sounds different, very different. There's two reasons why it sounds different. Two very important reasons why it sounds different. One of the reasons is that the filter slope is different. So as you get this build, you have to open it up like that. And you can now hear it tearing. Sounds good, but it doesn't sound as good as this, in my view, although it sounds legit good. And that's because of the filter slope. But the main thing is the speed of the envelopes, the filter envelope and the amp envelope, the VCA. So the VCF envelope and the VCA envelope. This, I believe, is completely analog. This, I think these envelopes are digital, which is probably the only way they could get them as fast as the original. The original Sequential Circuits Pro-1 was famous for being really snappy. And if you're doing 16th note arpeggios at 128 beats per minute, you need the snap. Here's the square wave. The glide circuits work completely differently, glide or portamento between these. So it's actually quite interesting. It's kind of an effect. Yeah, so you can do a kind of a build. And just for fun, let's bring some noise in. It's a really nice effect. Overdriving it. That's pretty good. Switch back to the Pro. The noise is much less prominent. You've got to tune it in. See how much difference when you're routing the noise through this the VCA makes. And the glide trick doesn't really work on this. Another oscillator. I'm just taking all the attack off the filter at the same time as introducing portamento. So this stuff is really difficult to do on a soft synth. I mean, you basically can't do it because it's not just about the sound, it's about the workflow. And of course, what you actually do is you record like hours of this stuff and then you cut it up and use it in production. Oh, someone sent me a message. So there you have it, a fight out between two classic bass synths. In fact, let's be honest, two classic straight up analog mono synths. The Behringer Model D, modelled after the Moog Model D, and the Behringer Pro-1, modelled after the sequential circuits Model 1. Different architectures, different filters, but they both do bass in an amazing way. And I compare these two synths in a lot of videos for bass. There's a reason for that. That is the subject of another video. But let's just talk about how they fared in this particular demo or fight, which was progressive house, pluck sounds, like deadmau5 you might say, at 128 BPM, 16th notes. How did they do? The Pro-1 crushed it, the Model D struggled. Why? Model D is an amazing bass synth, got incredible filter, incredible sound. One reason, the envelope isn't fast enough. If you want to do any style of bass at reasonable tempo that's fast 16th notes, you're going to have a problem if you haven't got fast envelopes. And the Pro-1's envelopes are honestly as fast as they come. So of course it crushes the Model D because this is just not the Model D's sweet spot. You really have to kind of tune it in to try and find that tiny little point with just about coping. But even then it doesn't sound as good. No, listen, you can get some great sounds out of it, but what you can't get is that really snappy attack sound that you need for this because you need the transient. This kind of bass sound isn't just about the girthy bass, it's also about that percussive snap, you know, and it's a pluck, right? It's a pluck. The Pro-1 gets it, the Model D doesn't get it. Now you heard that even around that classic pluck sound, you know, single oscillator, sawtooth wave, filter envelope is basically how it works. And then you dial in the filter. There's lots of variations. You can put noise in, you can open the filter, close it, give more or less envelope. You can experiment with the key tracking. You can add another envelope. You can detune it. You can even switch to square wave and kind of get some acid stuff if you add some resonance. But at the end of the day, as far as the test goes, there's a very clear winner, and it's the Pro-1.